Hey, this is Meridith Elliott Powell, and you know what time it is. It is time for Thrive, the show where we dive into the strategies, discuss the steps, everything that you need to know to turn all of this uncertainty into your greatest competitive advantage. And today I have a very special guest. I got to tell you, he is a mentor, an idol, a true guide, really somebody that I would not be sitting in this seat have it not been for Brian Biro. He is America's breakthrough coach. And today we're going to talk about his brand new book and everything that you need to understand to really learn from today's or yesterday's legends about the strategies that can really help you be successful, both in your professional and personal life. Brian, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Meredith. Anytime I get to spend with you is thriving time.
Well, as I told the audience, you have been a mentor, a guide, a friend, just somebody who I wouldn't be sitting here today if it wasn't for you. And you have been in this business a long time. For our audience members that haven't had the opportunity to connect with you, tell us a little bit about Brian Biro.
Well, I think the most important thing is the way I sign every email. It starts with my priorities, and it says Brian Biro, husband, father, grandfather, speaker, author. So that's where my priorities lie. I've had three really wonderful careers. My first career, I was a United States swimming coach. So I was working with young athletes to reach their potential. And you don't really coach swimming, you coach people. And that's kind of set the pattern because I just love bringing out the best in people. Second career, corporate career. I ended up becoming a vice president first of a very large transportation company and then an international training company. And now for 33 years doing this work I love with all of my heart as a speaker and an author. I joke, and it's the truth. Yesterday I turned 69 years old, but when I'm on stage, I'm 25. That 69 is right there. But I'm called America's breakthrough speaker because to me, breakthroughs are what really life is about. And my whole focus has been about how can we make breakthroughs not only possible, but plannable. How can we actually organize our lives, really focus on controlling our controllables to create breakthroughs?
So let me ask you this. How many books have you written to date?
16. I have, some of them are co-authored books, but 16 books. My first book was called Beyond Success. And it's kind of fun. My newest book is called Lessons from the Legends. And it's almost a circle for anybody who, you can't really see it that well, but behind me is a picture of me with one of those two legends who's named John Wooden. And Coach Wooden, who was the greatest college men's basketball coach of all time at UCLA, wrote the foreword to Beyond Success. And this latest book, that is called Lessons from the Legends, really comes back and digs into bringing some of the incredible principles that he lived by that I think are more pertinent than ever and into reality right now. So I've written 16 books, had a blast writing every one. Every time you write, you get a chance to create a connection in your mind that was always there, but was never connected.
One of the reasons I wanted to ask the question is, you're 16 books in. This one that I want to talk about today, Lessons from the Legends. And I had the chance to go through your whole media kit and the chapters. Everything just looks so not only interesting and engaging, but so practical and usable. What has this book always been in you that you knew you were going to write, or is this something that sort of came about, kind of dawned on you in the last year or so that you had to write? Where has this book been?
I think it's a brilliant question. I think it's kind of a combination of both. I think any book that we write is always in us. It's a matter of having circumstance in your life, timing in your life, thoughts in your life come together to bring out what's already in you. But this book, I think, really came together for me because of the fact that I think that more than ever, we need to focus on our character more than our reputation. Your character, as Coach Wooden would often say, your character is who you are, your reputation only what others think you are. And some of these, you may say, old school ideas, things about enthusiasm, things about industriousness or your work ethic, things about alertness, things about really having a purpose that's bigger than yourself. I think I think are more important than ever. And I really love that this was a combination of old and new to me. I've been a real fan, if you will, of Coach John Wooden for my whole life. I've loved
Yeah.
him ever since I was a little kid. I loved the way he treated people with dignity and respect. And the other legend in this book is named Pat Summitt. And Pat Summitt, for those who don't know or not sports folks, Pat Summitt was the greatest women's college basketball coach. You might get an argument for somebody from Connecticut who might say,
Yeah, right.
but she was really the foundation of women's basketball. But women's basketball would not be where it is today had it not been for Pat Summitt, who went to 16 Final Fours. That's just crazy. But she too, like John Wooden, was more about coaching people. She loved to win. They both loved to win. But give you an idea, John Wooden, 27 years at UCLA, never said the words winning or losing to his players.
Wow.
Now, did he want to win? Oh, yeah. But what he wanted was why I wrote this book. He wanted everyone to focus on the things they do control rather than to focus on the things they don't control. His definition of success is peace of mind. It comes from one thing, from knowing you've given the best of which you're capable. In other words, if you have to compare, you don't know. And Pat Summitt epitomized these same kinds of principles in a totally different style. You know, John Wooden was the ultimate gentleman. I think the toughest words he ever said was good grief.
Wow.
Pat Summitt could melt this screen with her chair. She was tough. She was famous for saying things like, toughen up, Buttercup. But both of them epitomize what I think is the most necessary, vital, and almost lost key to being a great leader these days. And it's called humility.
Yeah.
You know, being humble. See, I think what's happened is people got lost thinking that humility is somehow weak or that you can't be confident when you're humble. I'm looking at a person who I believe is incredibly confident and incredibly humble. Because being humble doesn't mean you think less of yourself. It means you think of yourself less.
Yeah.
And the reason why humility,
So well said.
why it's so crucial to being a great leader, to thriving in any kind of uncertainty is only those who are humble are lifelong learners. Because only those who are humble would rather make a mistake and learn something than to always pretend they're right.
Right.
And only those who are humble are absolutely more naturally desired to give credit and take responsibility. As another great coach often said, I just love this, it was Bear Bryant, the old coach of Alabama. He said, I'm just an old country plowhand. If I learned one thing, he says, if you want to get a team's heart to beat as one, he says, when things go great, they did it.
Yeah.
Things go pretty good, we did it. Things
Yeah.
go bad, I did it.
I did it.
I got to change me. If things are to change, I must change.
You know, that's not only humble, it's accurate, correct? I mean, like, you know, I have always said that the beauty of taking responsibility is that if you own it, you can control it. You know, like if I blame you, I just gave all the power away. Maybe I get to feel fine in the moment. It's Brian's fault I wasn't successful. But that's the end of my story. If it's your fault, I can't make any progress. If I decide it's my fault, then great. All the power comes back to me and I can make the changes that I need to change. And Brian, a question I want to ask, because this is the thing that I was so intrigued by the book. I mean, there have been a lot of great coaches out there. Why these two? I mean, I know you've been a fan of John your whole life. I mean, he wrote the first foreword for your book. You know, you went to UCLA. I mean, you're in the Hall of Fame at UCLA. I mean, I get that. But why, you know, of all the places you could have gone, what was it about these two? And I love the fact that they are, while the value system is the same, boy, their approach is so different.
Yeah, I think that's really one of the main reasons I want to do it. I wanted a man and a woman, and that was one reason. I also wanted to have show that you can have similar deep down principles that guide your life and have a completely different style. Because one of the things that both of these would have spoken about was we can disagree without being disagreeable. We have lost that. We got to get that back. I don't want a team around me of people who are exactly like me.
Yeah.
Then we're only going to see that narrow funnel that I see. I want people who see the things that I don't see. I want people who are great at the things I'm not great at. Because then if we're going towards a common end, then we expand our possibilities. So all of those elements were why I wanted to choose these two. I also wanted to choose that to make sure that people understood that you can live with these foundational principles, have completely different styles, and it can still work. You can be yourself. Both of them were completely and utterly genuine. I think
Yeah.
that's really,
Yeah.
to me, that's the key to being a great speaker, is to be completely
I
genuine.
agree.
And both of them were most definitely that. And it shines not only in their records, their achievements in the sport are truly legendary, but it was in much more important to them was what the people that they coached did with their lives.
Yeah.
That's what they, and both of them, that's what they lived for. Now, Coach Wooden lived to be 99 and a half. We almost made 100, passed peacefully. Coach Summit died at a very early age,
Yeah.
in her 60s, from early onset Alzheimer's. And her fight against Alzheimer's was also incredible. Incredible in the way that she carried herself, incredible in the way that she came forward, incredible at the way that she lived a life fully in a much shorter time. So I think there's similarities in foundation, there are differences in style, and the fact that that they're each demonstrating that if you're authentic, if you live your principles, you walk your talk, then you can do great things in this life.
I think that's so well said. I mean, what I love about the differences in them is that you can find little things to connect to in each one of them. Because I think if you try to, emulate the legend of either's, there's parts of it, gosh, I don't know that I could ever be the gentleman that John Wooden was. I want to go back to this idea of humility, because I do think, when I think about humility and authenticity, and I really think about those two going really so well hand in hand. I've always thought it is the most confident person who can be humble. You don't need it to be about you. You don't need the accolades, and you truly have transcended to a point where you can focus more on others than you can focus on yourself. Where has humility gone, and why have we lost it? You were talking about, Bear Bryant. I remember years ago when I lived in South Carolina, and uh, race car driving was really big when I lived down there. And
Still is.
yeah, that's true. And there was a race car driver down there. I forget his name right now, but he just was winning everything one after another. And I finally saw an interview on one day when I was bartending, and he said he just won this huge, whatever the most important thing is that you win in NASCAR, and he had just won it. And he stood up to get the award, and they said, you're amazing. What a year you've had. We've never seen a record like this. And he went on to talk about the fact that he didn't think he was much of a race car driver, but you should have seen the shed he just built behind his house. That he, like it was just, it was so. I mean, you just loved him. Like he didn't need to tell us what an amazing NASCAR driver he was. I mean, his record had. I don't know anything about NASCAR, and I could tell you he was amazing. But it was so genuine in the way that he did it. And now when I think about athletes today, I mean, they're not like that. Certainly our politicians are not like that. Certainly celebrities aren't like that. Where has humility gone, and why do you think that it has gone?
I hate to say it, but part of it's media. I think that media, has put a big star on talking about me instead of we. And I think that, but I also think that it comes down to we are not teaching the foundation of that builds that kind of authenticity and humility. And the basis of that is you have to let go of two, I'll call them needs, because that's what they've become: the need for approval and the need to control other people. Uh,
Mm.
Now, there's a difference between enjoying and appreciating when you receive praise, or you receive plaudits, or you receive, glowing acknowledgement, um, and the need for it. When
Yeah.
you need for it, you're not going to be genuine, because you're not really coming from the inside. You're always looking to the outside to tell you who you are. Now, I know this firsthand, because growing up, grew up like a lot of people my age with a dad who had a real hard time saying I was, saying anything really good to me. And he did it for what he really felt were the right reasons. He didn't want me to have a fat head, but
Yeah.
he couldn't say I love you. He couldn't say I'm proud of you, son. He was just tough. And as a result, as a kid, more than anything in this world, what I always wanted my dad to say, I'm proud of you, son. I love you. And it turned into an inner
Mm,
hunger for approval.
yeah.
One day at 21 years of age, just about to graduate from college at Stanford University, I finally had an epiphany and realized that because of that need for approval, I'd been living my whole life as if the only way I was good enough was to be the best at everything. And I was no fun, Meredith.
Yeah, right, right.
I had to beat you. Whatever it was, I had to beat you, 'cause
Yeah.
that was the only way I could feel I was good enough. And then as soon as if I did, then it was, what if I'm not as good tomorrow? And one day, what happened that day was I changed one word in my life that transformed me, and transformed the future of my life. I changed from this insatiable, crazy thing about being the best to a simple desire to be my best. Change from the
Mm,
best to my best, and suddenly I let go of the need for approval. Because it stopped me comparing myself to know who I was, and I think
right.
that's where we've gone wrong. We're constantly comparing. And when we compare, we're either overblowing ourselves or kind of hiding down underneath. And when we start to focus on being our best, just the best I can be, we can be not as good yesterday as we were today, and vice versa. But as long as we know we're controlling the things we put in, then we're going to get the best we can out. When you let go of that comparison and that need for approval, you stop blaming. You spoke about that before. And blame has no real value whatsoever. And here's why. Very practically, think about blame in the context of time. Is blame about the past, the present, or the future?
Mhm.
It's always about
Blame's
the past.
right, always about the
Can
past.
can you change the past? No. So
No.
whenever you are in blame, where are you? You are in the past, where there is no construction at all. So being a blame buster doesn't pretend you don't mess up. It doesn't pretend that we didn't do the wrong thing. What it does is says, this is what happened. What am I going to learn? How am I going to do better? And the need to control other people, boy, that's an important one to
Yeah.
let go of, because you're not going to do it.
Not gonna do it.
And all it's going to do is create genuine frustration. So I think that we've lost that humility because we've been so swept up in trying to shine in a comparative way rather than to focus on the things that are inside that really matter. That's what this book is about. You're about
Yeah.
everything in this book. Every one of the principles are things that are your choice. Because another word for controllable is a choice.
Yeah, absolutely. So speaking of the principles in the book, I mean, gosh, there's so many of them. Which of the ones do you think are the most powerful? Well, maybe that's not even fair because they probably all are. But which ones really stood out to you or resonated with you or really had a light bulb go off with you?
Boy, I'll tell you, man, you're like asking me to tell me which one.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly, right.
I would say that a couple of them that really stick out for me is enthusiasm for one.
Mm,
And both Coach Summit talked more about passion. Coach Wooden would talk about enthusiasm, but essentially to them they were the same. Um, I've told my daughters when they were seeking to have an interview for a job, it doesn't matter what you know. It matters how much you want to know. It's that
mm,
enthusiasm, that desire, that hunger to learn. And that is infectious, and that is so powerful because you'll constantly look it really sets off your alertness to listen better, to hear better. So to me, that's one of the most important elements that both shine, and each and again in their unique style. Coach Wooden was he was very calm and he didn't get too up or too down. Um, but he was constantly had that inner enthusiasm about bringing out the best in people. So that was a huge one. I think another is to really look at yourself in the context of a team.
mm.
Call it team spirit. I truly believe we're only at our best when we remember that the best thing about us is we'll do more for others than we'll do for ourselves.
Yeah.
Um, and both of these coaches set a high bar for the people that they coached. They really were what I would call a positive Pygmalion. The Pygmalion effect says that our thoughts, our beliefs, and our expectations are magnetic. That as I look at you when you were starting out, I saw this incredible potential. And that's who I saw. All right. And as a result of that, those thoughts actually transferred into you to some degree.
Right.
You move in that direction. So both of them really epitomize this Pygmalion effect. And that really comes when you look at people and understand that their very best comes when they look beyond themselves. So I guess those are the ones to me, because I think in some ways those are the two that can, no matter who you are, you can grab a hold of those two. And I think that's really, really at the core of it. If there's one more that I would say, it's to live with a shining purpose.
Mm,
One of my favorite books, I read it every 4 or 5 years, is Man's Search for Meaning.
yeah, such a
Uh,
great book.
Viktor Frankl. It's his life story of having been in Auschwitz, the concentration camp. And one thing sticks out for me, that book, more than any, and it epitomizes the way these two lived. He said, if you would have try to guess who would survive the concentration camp, you probably would have been wrong, because you probably looked mainly at their physical stature.
Yeah.
He says, what kept you alive was a purpose left undone. Whether it was a child you needed to return to, whether there's work you were so passionate you must fulfill, but it was that purpose that kept you alive. In other words, if you're not inspired, then truly you're on the way to getting expired. And so I think both of them recognize the power of purpose in such a rich way, and it shined through every one of the principles that they taught.
I'm really fascinated by the whole idea of purpose and the motivation it turns on at a level. You were talking about Connecticut, basketball coach at Connecticut. I tell a story sometimes when I'm on stage about the matchup between Mississippi State and the University of Connecticut in the Final Four. And it was a matchup nobody wanted to watch, because UConn had come into that having won 111 straight games. And the last time they had beat Mississippi State, they beat them by a humiliating 60 points. It's one of the worst losses ever in college basketball. But as the story goes, the Mississippi State players had made a vow that day that they were humiliated, losing by 60 points, that they would never lose to UConn again. And they would certainly never lose by anywhere near 60 points. They came on, nobody could believe it, but they actually beat UConn on that day. And they were interviewing a basketball player afterwards. And she just went through how driven they were. And she literally said, I didn't step onto that court to play basketball. I stepped onto that court to get our reputation back. The very next game they played South Carolina, they lost. And it was, that purpose was gone. I mean, it just calls you at a whole nother level. It's so unbelievably powerful.
It is. As a swimming coach, I and in Beyond Success, my first book, and it really comes alive in lessons from the leaders. I talk about something I call the relay paradigm. And it was fascinating to me as a coach, because my swimmers, and I had a really wonderful swimming coaching career. I started with little kids, and by the time I finished, we were, kind of a national powerhouse. And no matter what level that athlete was, something magical happened to them when they got in a relay.
Mm.
They always outperformed their individual performance in the exact same distance and exact same stroke. And so I started to think about, why is that? What is it? Because it's the same person.
Yeah.
If they do this in a relay, they could do it in that individual race. And I really came down to this thing I call the relay paradigm. And here are the essence. Number one, it's that I refuse to let my team down. That's what Mississippi State did. We refuse. It's not
Yes.
going to try. It's past the line of certainty. It's certain. One thing for certain.
It's certain.
I'm giving everything I've got. When you do that, you no longer fear your competitor. In fact, what happens is you suddenly understand your competitor is your very best teammate, because they are simply energy sources when you pass that line of certainty. I want them to be great, because the better they are, the better I'm going to be, because I've passed the line and that fear is gone. And of course, the third pillar to this, when you're in a relay, you have 3 other people that are counting on you.
Yeah.
You refuse to let them down. So is there the same kind of energy that you want? Absolutely. But it's not fear energy, fear-driven energy. It's certainty energy.
Yeah.
And that is the relay paradigm. And it was astonishing. I tell a story about a swimming race in the Olympics, and I actually tell two of them, one from 1984 and one from 1996. But an athlete who had no chance to beat the anchor swimmer. The United States swimmer was there, our anchor guy. France had the finest swimmer in the world in that distance and stroke, who went into the water a body length ahead. And this guy's body was 6'6".
Okay.
And our anchor swimmer, highest he ever got was a bronze medal in Olympics a couple of years before. He was over the hill, supposedly, but he was our anchor swimmer, driving in more than a body behind the fastest swimmer in the world in 100-meter freestyle. But that relay paradigm in the United States was unbelievable. And in the last 5 meters, I'm getting the chills to remember it, finish ever, he touched him out. Jason Lezak was his name. And we won the gold medal. And that young man went over 2 seconds faster in a 100-meter freestyle. That's
wow,
about 47 seconds. He went 45 seconds. Nobody's ever gone faster since that time. And it was astonishing. It was also kind of cool because it was the first race of Michael Phelps' Olympics when he won 8 gold medals. And had we finished second, he could not have won 8 gold medals, one of those medals. So we won it by about 100th of a second, and with the most remarkable swim. And it epitomized when you absolutely care more about others even than you care for yourself.
Yeah, you're driven at another level. Well, Brian, it is hard to believe, but we are at the end of this interview. And I always like to end with 2 things. Number one, tell everybody how they can get hold of you, how they can find out more about the book. And then what is your best piece of advice for everybody looking to thrive in uncertainty? What is the one takeaway that you want them to know and to understand to turn all of this uncertainty into their greatest competitive advantage?
Well, number one is listen to Meridith. This book doesn't even come out until November 14th, and then it'll be available on Amazon. To find out about me, speaking is my passion. That's what I absolutely love. I'm so excited. I'm doing 10 events in October. And I just
nice.
My website is my name, brianbiro.com. And I will promise you that if you reach out to me, I will definitely get back to you within 24 hours, unless I am flying more than 24 hours.
which could be possible, right?
The most important advice is I think the most foundational thing that I teach, and it really was the epitome of John Wooden and Pat Summitt. If you make one choice in your life, make the choice to be fully present. Being fully present says to everyone you meet, you touch, you care about, that they're important. There is no trust without presence. There is no real relationship without presence. And you cannot lead without being fully present. And the essence of being present, you want to practice it, listen more. Listen and take in what the other person says before you formulate your response. Remember, whenever you are fully present, you say to people, you matter, you count, you're important. And when people feel important, they thrive.
Yeah, so well said. Years ago, I had a master certified coach say to me, I was having a little bit of doubt around working with really high executives. And she said, Meridith, if you will sit in front of those executives and be 100% present, do not think about what you're going to say, how you're going to respond, or the next question you're going to ask. She said, what is going to happen because of the experience you have and the history you have and the intelligence you have to be present, the wisdom will bubble up out of you. And I have been blown away by that. I mean, sometimes something will come out of me and I'll be like, who even said that? But if I had not been present, it would never have happened.
And you have to trust that. You have to trust that it will come. Whenever I work with a speaker, that's what happens, is that it's completely opposite to being on stage for me, because on stage, I know what I'm going to do.
Exactly.
I know what I'm doing. But with someone I'm working with, I don't know. I have to listen to be fully present. And then boom, it's going to come. The epiphany, the key point, the little tweak that can make all the difference. And when you trust that, you allow it to come, because that's when you let go of trying to think of what you're going to say next.
Yes.
It'll come if you truly listen. It's, good clue. 2 ears, 1 mouth.
There's a reason.
Keep that in mind.
That's right. Well, Brian, thank you so much. You have been amazing. We're super excited about the book. We'll make sure we have all those things in the show notes so people can get a copy of it. And if you do not follow Brian, you should follow Brian. It's just the tip of the iceberg of all the wisdom you are going to gain. And so I want to thank you all for being here today. We'll see you right back here next week for another episode of Thrive. And together, we are going to turn all of this uncertainty into your greatest competitive advantage.